Welcome to Rooted Resilience, where we explore narratives of current and contemporary Two-Spirit LGBTQIA+ creatives living on colonized Nipmuc, Nonotuck, and Pecumtuck land, known also as Western Massachusetts. I'm Em, and every month we gather here to listen to these multi-talented culture creators with curiosity, intention, and a little bit of magic.
The very first time that I went and played an open mic, I was really calm. I wasn't sure if I would have a panic attack, and then when my name was announced and I climbed on stage, I felt at home, and it was really, really unexpected and really wonderful. And I just played my couple of little songs, and I knew that I could follow my dream. I also realized it was going to take a really long time, because playing 3 songs to 12 people in a room and building a career from that's a long way to go. But I knew I could.
In this episode, you will hear from Pamela Means, a biracial and queer singer-songwriter, jazz musician, activist, and educator, and a native of Wisconsin, who arrived to Boston in her 20s, toured nationally and internationally in her 30s, and is now an anchor to the Western Massachusetts music scene. She has been compared to both Tracy Chapman and DiFranco, and has also been described as a cross between Suzanne, Vega, and Jimi Hendrix, and heir to the legacy of Nina Simone. In Pamela's own words, really, I'm just me.
I'm Pamela Means, she, her pronouns. And I'm a songwriter, activist, educator, lesbian. And we're going to talk about all of that. Well, I often have many projects going. I can feel restless at times, or just that I really enjoy being busy creatively, whether that's a string of gigs or multiple projects. I used to tour full time, and so that meant a string of gigs and lots of driving. I abandoned that lifestyle, I thought, for just a short time, but now it seems to have been forever. That was a lifetime ago, and it was a thrilling life to live for a decade, touring all over the continent, internationally to some extent, and it was liberating. Being a closeted queer person who grew up in Wisconsin and, dealt with racism in my face from grade school on, to create a dream of escape and to live off of my creativity and to make that a reality was liberating. It still is, because I'm now living the life that was paved at that time. And so, for a decade, all through my 30s, I spent my 30s on the road. And everywhere I've gone in the world, just about, certainly 95%, including all international places, are because I had a gig there. And so every gig that I had during that time, and still, but especially then, was affirmation that I chose to follow my dream and to not be afraid of what may come with that choice. Affirmation that I didn't get stuck in Wisconsin, which I was terrified of having happen. So that was a very special time, and at the same time, I don't think I want to go back to it unless it's like super lush, like super diva life. But I don't need to drive from Massachusetts to San Diego again. I did that many times. And all four corners of the continent. I've played Alaska, Hawaii, been to Australia, coast to coast in Canada, Sweden, the Netherlands, which I really liked. And all because I performed there. A lot of that was on tour with Alex Olsen, so I want to give credit. Alex Olsen, who was a tremendous spoken word artist, queer icon. And I was her guitar player, creative partner, and we were actually partners for part of that time too. So very integral in my life and still my chosen family. I think I also had an emotional response to touring in the old me because I've been thinking about the year of the snake and shedding old ways and old selves and turning the page and the year of the horse, and it's a Gemini supermoon today, and I'm a double Gemini. And I don't invest in any of these things, but I find them very fascinating, and they're also very poetic. But I'm thinking about, as I often do, but I think all of us hyper think about where we've been and where we're going at the end and beginning of a year. And so that's my old self, and there are new paths now, and I'm thinking of shedding even more old parts of me that are no longer needed.
Pamela takes us through old and new paths of her life, paths that are steeped in self-reflection and that lay the groundwork for understanding how place has informed her music and how the range of projects she is working on reflect her dynamicism.
I think being an artist, we're always forced to figure it out and find a way to create and to thrive and eat and pay bills. And that I stopped touring abruptly when I moved back to the hill towns, to Plainfield, Massachusetts, and universal health care kicked in, and I started therapy. And one of the first things my therapist said, because I was touring all the time, he said, "Do you think you've designed your life to be running away from your problems?" And I was like, "Bruh, dude, come on, man." You're just gonna come at me like that? And yeah, duh. But also all of that affirmation and escape that I had talked about. But soon after, very soon after, being challenged with that and being at a place where I was willing to begin that internal work, which was really like a super spelunking excavation of the soul, which I did when I lived in Plainfield. Still in it, but that was the really, really, really dark depths of it. I couldn't tour, and so I abruptly stopped touring and started to deal with myself and have become transformed in the process in many ways. And so now I don't want to be chasing all over the globe. I just want a cute little house. I want to be chill here in the valley or the hill towns and write my songs and zigzag across Massachusetts or New England or maybe a little bit further. Work can still be busy, but go home almost every night from whatever project I'm into. And so I don't want to escape. I want deep roots planted now, and I did not foresee that change happening in myself. But I welcome it. And so thus, I have multiple projects. I always have my singer-songwriter self, but I also have a jazz quintet, sometimes even bigger, a sextet, where we play mostly jazz standards, my favorite era, the 1930s, 40s, 50s. I used to be a jazz student. I went to the Wisconsin Conservatory in Milwaukee, where I grew up, and studied classical guitar and jazz. And I was terrible at the jazz for a long time, but then I practiced. And I also think writing protest songs and living with an alert lens at all times as an activist, as a queer, biracial person in this country, which has always been difficult for those of us with these identities, to have a respite from that. I play jazz, but there's also politics in jazz, so it's not too far off. And I just love music, playing the guitar, learning music.
On the side of the road to Nirvana. I'm the seventh sun setting high over Andromeda.
I did a project a couple years ago. It was a TikTok challenge that I jumped into without really thinking about it, and then I was in it, where I posted a song a day for 100 days in a row. And I like that kind of a challenge. Learning things quickly outside of what I usually do. I have another project, speaking of that, where I perform the entire Beatles album, Abbey Road, and that's a project. So when I stopped touring and I was living in Plainfield, I wanted to still stay on top of my chops and be creative somehow, and part of that was challenging myself to learn something outside of my wheelhouse, and a bunch of white British dudes seemed pretty far away. And plus there's the iconic medley sections on that album, which just seemed so difficult. And I thought, wow, what if I could learn this? So just to challenge myself, I started to learn it, and it took 8 months and a lot of profanity. And that was a small dream, but I realized, wow, this is something that I can do. So it's something that I have performed now. And another great thing that gives me a break from politics, yet still is politics, because I'm queering up the Beatles by not changing the pronouns or anything. And it's also a remarkable, which I didn't really foresee, but it's a place where people literally come together, pun intended. And but the first time I did this show, there was like old scraggly dudes in their 70s and with tears in their eyes, who had firsthand memories of the Beatles album Abbey Road. And so just the demographic of crossing all lines with this project in particular is a really beautiful thing. And so it's a favorite thing that I like to do. It's a lot of work. You can't just pull a Beatles album out of your ass. So every time I do it, I really have to work hard to relearn it all. But it's really, it in a way, which I also didn't foresee when I learned it, it's become more of something that I can give than receive, and to bring community together in that way, even more than my regular shows, is a really wonderful thing. So that lights me up. Another project that lights me up that I didn't see coming is I'm an actor now, and I'm in a play called One Long Earring that my longtime friend Faith Soloway created. And it's about a fictional lesbian band that was super famous and broke up and is having a reunion gig amidst all of their drama. And it's pretty funny. And it's kind of like, we describe it kind of like a Leslie Spinal Tap, because we have actual songs. I've written a song, co-written a song, and we're actually performing So there's a cast of 6, and we're a band, and the setting is we're on stage. So I'm the lead guitarist, Melissa Farrick is the drummer, Faith is the leader, and on keyboards, Bitch is bass. Ann Stott is an actor in P-Town and musician, and she plays a character, and Merle Perkins is the token straight woman who's in the cast. We've had half a dozen performances this year, mostly Provincetown, but Boston, and also in visions of it going in all the major cities, and who knows. And so my only acting experience besides grade school plays was having a semester of it in 10th grade. And I got an A once because I made myself cry. So, but I make jokes, banter at my gigs, so there's some overlap. But I didn't know if I would be able to do it, but so far, so good. And I really enjoy. That's another kind of a challenge. And didn't see that coming at all. As I'm getting older, I think about being older, mentorship, becoming an elder at some point. At some point. And I give private lessons. I teach workshops here and there. I am excited about the first annual songwriters retreat that I will host and teach at, which will be held in Provincetown in January 2026. Excited to start something like that again, and that's also another way to having more projects that keep me busy and not too far away.
Next, Pamela shares the root of the root that has shaped her and the music that comes through her childhood and teenage years in Wisconsin. It is, as you might think, a story that comes with roots in white supremacy, fascism, and racism. And it is also a story of a girl who discovered the power of music, breaking strings on her first guitar, and many more after that. Poems she wrote on her mother's refrigerator, and her first experience of playing in a coffee house.
In my beginning, I'm biracial still. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is hyper-segregated. Everywhere is segregated, so my experiences, I mentioned racism in my face, that really happened. And so when my parents divorced when I was around 6 or 7, my mother and I moved to Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is almost equidistant between Milwaukee and Madison, a little closer to Milwaukee. Very white, all white, totally white. And my mother sent me to Lutheran grade school, fucked up, Mount Calvary Lutheran grade school in Waukesha. And haven't written a song about it yet, probably still processing the trauma, but that's where I learned that gays go to hell. That's where I was first called nigger from as early as 5th grade. That's where a memory came back to me in the last couple of years where I was in 6th grade and I was looking on the bookshelf because I was a little nerd for an extracurricular book to read, and I pulled this book out because it had a curious spine on it. And my teacher, Mr. Schultz, rushed over and took it out of my hand. He says, "Let's not read that." And it was Mein Kampf. And so why the fuck is Mein Kampf on the shelf of a Waukesha, Wisconsin Lutheran grade school in the first place where I was called nigger? Makes sense. I'm not censoring that word because that's what the fuck I was called. And so I think I had dreams of being a celebrity of some kind because I wanted love and admiration. I felt persecuted and ostracized. I felt on the outside. I had 1 or 2 friends, but it was still a small community, small church and school. And so I think those were the seeds of me wanting to be an artist. But at the same time, there were toy instruments that I had. I remember having a Mickey Mouse drum set when I was around 3. It was under the Christmas tree. The drumsticks were probably about 6 inches. But I was rocking that shit. I had a hand-me-down semi-real guitar. It was made of plastic, but it had real strings on it, and there were 4 strings on it when I got it, and I didn't know you were supposed to have 6. And it came with a broken pick, so I just rocked the shit out of that out-of-tune 4-string plastic guitar with my broken pick. And then I broke a string one day, which was prescient, because then I would break lots of strings later when I started my career with all my rage. And so then I only had 3 strings, but I would make up little songs and little poems, and my mom would put them on the fridge. So I don't remember a conscious connection between creating stuff and then and wanting to be known for it. I love to escape in movies and TV, and all I listened to was pop radio until my later teens. I didn't know that there was more. And then I did have that acting class in 10th grade, because I kind of thought about being an actor. But being a musician was very dominant in my being. And I don't remember deciding to become a musician. I decided to pursue it even though I was terrified of it. So my worry was I going to be able to do it or not? Because I also was really, really, really shy. And so it was hard to imagine getting on stage. When I first played songs I'd written when I was 18 for my 2 best friends at the time, I made them turn their backs to me. And they said, "Oh, it's good." I was like, "No, for real though, tell me for real. Come on, don't lie." And when I first played my own songs at an open mic when I was 20, it was at the Coffee House, which was a church basement weekend coffee house in Milwaukee that I'd heard about. And then later became involved with and co-managed it, and would set up the stage and do the sound every weekend and MC and perform frequently. But the very first time that I went and played an open mic, I was really calm. I wasn't sure if I would have a panic attack. And then when my name was announced and I climbed on stage, I felt at home. And it was really, really unexpected and really wonderful. And I just played my couple of little songs, and I knew that I could follow my dream. I also realized it was going to take a really long time, because playing 3 songs to 12 people in a room and building a career from that's a long way to go. But I knew I could. And so I was also still gay and closeted, and I was starting to do gigs around Milwaukee. After I turned 21, I started playing bars, and I had some, and then within a year or so, lesbians were coming to my gigs, and I was like, how do they know? What's going on? I was freaking out. And I also had 2 relationships with 2 women, and not at the same time. But I made them keep it a secret because I was in the closet. And I'm ashamed of that now. That's a terrible thing to ask someone, especially someone who's already done the work. But I hadn't yet. They were gracious, and that's where I was. Well, the first one was gracious. The second one outed me. Her roommate outed me, which was stressful. And I remember hearing whispers that people were whispering about me, and straight white dude industry men were whispering about me, and I was freaking the fuck out when I knew that people were starting to whisper about me. And there's an Audre Lorde quote that says, like, you must use your own truth to empower yourself or others will use it against you. And so once I came out, well, there's nothing to whisper about anymore. And somewhere in there, one of my good friends, Peter Mulvey, who's still my chosen fam, we were both from Milwaukee and played gigs together. I used to open for his college band, Big Sky. And he moved to Boston 2 years before me and kept encouraging me to visit. And I finally did. I was afraid to go, but I finally went and conveniently fell in love with a lesbian in his friend circle. Valerie. And she became my first real girlfriend. I mean, I fell in love. And I moved 6 months later, as you do.
Is she the one that got away? Who am I to say? If you somehow should see her next, all my love to my favorite ex. All my love to my favorite ex. Living the life was the life we lived.
This podcast is part of the Rooted Resilience Project, made possible through the generosity of these supporters and sponsors. Lemon Bakery, a queer and trans-owned bakery in Amherst, Massachusetts, run by Rory Hansen, providing homemade, locally sourced, seasonal baked goods with curbside pickup and delivery service. High Five Books. High Five Books is an inclusive kids community bookstore in Florence, known for graphic novels, middle grade readers, and picture books. Their collection focuses on social justice and LGBTQIA+ themes. Mass Humanities and the Mass Cultural Council, supporters of the Rooted Resilience Project through the Expand Massachusetts Stories program. Mass Humanities and the Mass Cultural Council, supporters of the Rooted Resilience Project through the Expand Massachusetts Stories program. And Bombeck Center for Arts and Equity, a world-class performing arts space in Florence, Massachusetts, home to music, film, theater, dance, and memorable community gatherings. Visit bombex.live/events to learn more and get tickets to performances. Thank you. To learn more about becoming a sponsor, visit rootedresilience.substack.com/sponsors. Pamela takes us down the road of her coming out process, one that also intersected with her first exposure to Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, James Baldwin, and many others, individuals that gave language to her lived experiences of growing up biracial in the Midwest, and whom she names as ancestors that she leans into as she continues to hold resistance as a core aspect of her music.
But knowing that I was about to move to Boston and I was truly in love, I began my coming out process because I didn't want to start my new life on a lie. But somewhere in that, before I moved, Valerie gave me an anthology called This Bridge Called My Back. And that was the first time I'd read any kind of feminist literature, let alone Black women. And that's when I woke up, and it just changed my life in an instant. And from there, I read Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, James Baldwin, and many others, but those three that I read in a very short time changed everything. And I was stunned and inspired by their frankness, by their vulnerability, by their elegance and accuracy, and calling out and naming all of the institutions and isms that we all walk through and deal with, and that I had grown up feeling a current of rage underneath, but didn't until then have the words for it or truly understand it as a whole sphere that we live in, not just me. Like, it wasn't just me, the black girl at school, being called these names. That was part of this whole history, terrible history, but I was part of something.
Down Main in the Pride Parade. No closets, no shame. Yes, love, no hate. Hands up, don't shoot.
Around the same time, I discovered a book called Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg, which changed my writing styles, and it still influences my writing style, which is the biggest piece I get from that is to do timed exercises where you're supposed to just scribble on a page and forget about all rules and grammar and whose feelings you might hurt, and to set a timer. And the purpose of that is to break through your own self-censors and get to often surprising things that we have in our subconscious mind. And so I'm exposed to all of this black, progressive, and feminist queer literature and essays for the first time, and this new writing approach. And the first song I write is a political song. It's called Black Boots. And the first song I ever wrote in a pile of tears, which I do frequently now. But just it was a place of raw, true emotion and self-truths. And I kind of, at the same time, I was overwhelmed to write something like that. But I felt a responsibility. But what I also found in these writers that inspired me is that when you write your own truth, people can relate to it, because we all experience the same spectrum of human emotions. So even though our experiences vary, we all experience rage, pain, joy, feeling left out. And so if I could be vulnerable enough to get to the smallest seed of those feelings in my own songs, there would be room for others to enter them, just as I had with those works of Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, James Baldwin. And so all at once I just knew, okay, well, I got to walk down this path. And if I don't, I won't be able to look in the mirror. So there is no choice. And so my goals, everything just shifted, and it was more of an acceptance. And I think I wanted to get out of jail free card and just write bubblegum pop bullshit. But I couldn't. I can't, I enjoy listening to it, and I think I have a couple lighter songs, but I don't believe that that's my purpose. And I've long since embraced it as, no, this is my path. And it's going to be longer, and it's going to be a lot of rice and beans. I'm going to drive that fucking 01 Toyota until the fucking duct tape is on the bumper. But I do believe that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Pamela talks more in depth about her songwriting, her identity, and the traumatic impact that religious teachings had on her young self and her music.
The first song I sang was called Jagged Cow, which is a word scramble of bulldagger. See how clever I am. So I was closeted and, in love with my best friends, thinking about women and writing songs for them, but in disguise and veiled pronouns and or no pronouns. So my first album was called Seven Romans, and Jagged Cow is on there. And Seven Romans means Romans chapter 7. Because I'm still, I was tortured by being gay for a long time because of the messages received from, like I said, gays go to hell from 3rd grade on. And so when I started to have crushes on girls in my adolescence, I was like really in a panic about it. And so I've spent most of my adult life working to untie those self-loathing knots that Lutheran school provided. And so Romans chapter 7 is this verse about, why do I keep doing the things I know I'm not supposed to do? I can't stop. And for me, that meant I'm gay. Like, I can't not be gay. How come I'm so gay? Keep trying not to think about gay stuff, but I'm just so gay. And so that was my code. Now I'm thinking in this moment, maybe that was the beginning, because I was addressing political things, but not yet facing them myself or writing about them openly. But those are not bubblegum concepts. And I had this weekly gig, and the pastor of the church that I still went to came to one of those gigs while there's still like lesbies coupled up in the audience. And like, now this fucking pastor is being all hip and cool and coming to my gig and ordering a beer at the bar. And I'm talking to him at the break. And he goes, Romans chapter 7. I'm pretty sure he said it right there at the bar, because he definitely said it to me. He goes, like, God wants you to do his work, or, Jesus wants you to blah, 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 some kind of thing like that. And, which is kind of fucked up to say, because I was on the gig to say some kind of tear me down kind of thing at the intermission, motherfucker. See, sometimes I have memories, and then sometimes I go back over them and I think, wow, I see it from another lens. But he tried. He thought he was doing the work he was supposed to do to save me. And after I moved to Boston and lived with Valerie, I did have a couple of grade school friends that would call me for a few months and be like, Pam, Jesus doesn't want you to be gay, Pam. And one of them was another high school friend that I was in love with, but we used to make out a lot. Yeah, no, that religion thing and the gayness has been like a long road to find peace in there. And ultimately it meant rejecting how I grew up, because it never will suddenly just be okay, in a place that has Mein Kampf on the bookshelf for grade schoolers, calling them the N-word and that queers go to hell.
We move from Pamela's childhood and formative years to the role that she holds in young queer people's lives now, as a teacher and one day an elder. She also shares more deeply about her own practice of songwriting, including the integration of self-care and joy as acts of resistance.
I give private lessons. I have since the first person said, "Would you give me a lesson?" And I didn't foresee becoming a teacher in any way either, but it's something I discovered that I enjoy. It also makes me better, because you need to know what you're talking about to teach it. And I've, been exposed to a lot of things that I would normally listen to, because I make the students, tell me, oh, what's your favorite stuff? And we learn from that, because there's always something to learn. And I feel it's my task to keep the flame alive and to undo or give a new opportunity for all the stories we hear about people who had lessons because they quit because they were forced to practice all the time. Made them learn 18 Beatles songs and didn't know that they liked Taylor Swift. And, so my motto as a teacher is to teach the way I wish that I had been taught. Because when I was learning jazz, my classical teacher was wonderful, and one of my jazz teachers was really great. But some of them were tough, and there just was no explanation. It was like, do this, cause. And so I enjoy teaching, especially young people. And I have had and currently have adolescent non-binary students. I get to give them what I didn't have. So I wish when I was 14, someone said, hey, if let's listen to your favorite song. Hey, they're actually using this scale or this progression to make up this cool song. And we were already practicing that stuff. And this is why you should practice X, Y, Z. And so I get to do that. And then I get to see all of my students, but especially younger ones, learn how to play fucking music, and not just their favorite songs, but to understand the math and the mechanics behind it, so that they can then play any song they want to play or replicate it in other keys. And learning music has been very empowering for me, and it feels really good to offer a chance of empowerment for my students in that way. So if I can continue to do that, and in all areas of my life, I aspire to be like Angela Davis in my old days, and to be graceful and eloquent and firm, knowledgeable.
My country, 'tis of thee. What's the matter with you? Handing on liberty for the privileged few. No justice for the rest of us. You've been crooked and cruel. Time to tear it all down and build something new. Time to tear it all down and build something true. We've been saying it for years. Now the video shows it. Reason for rage.
I live life as a songwriter, so there's always a piece that probably is aware of or sees things through gotta write this down kind of lens. But it's kind of sometimes blurry, the line between that and, I just gotta live and feel feelings and write them down or not, or look back later, but to actually live the moments rather than narrate them. I'm really been working to manage my self-care, my mental health, my health in all forms, and it's exhausting to be angry and in a rage and on high alert all the time, and I have been on high alert since the 2016 election, and there's barely been a respite since, especially since the 2024 election. And, I started reading Project 2025 last summer because I thought it was my job as a writer to actually read it and not just hear about it and then write about it. And it's fucking devastating, and not gotten very far. And I stopped watching news. I'm a news junkie. I like especially writing topical songs. I also want to be an informed citizen, global citizen. But it's too much, and you can't escape it anyway. So I've worked to put up more boundaries. And then something outrageous will happen, and I'll want to know about it. But that happens every 5 minutes. So I was feeling nearly comatose for about a month after the election. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And by December, I thought, I'm going to fight. And to fight has taken on different facets of meaning. And I've worked really hard this calendar year, to believe the words that joy is resistance. And it's easy to say, but for many months, there was nothing. I felt no joy, and then if a little joy tried to peek through, it felt, well, you're not supposed to feel joy. Things there's fascism. What is there to be joyful about? And then as that language began to spread more, and I say it sort of like in the fake it till you make it method, just say it and then you will believe it. You smile and then your brain thinks, oh, you're happy. Okay, I'll be happy. So I've continue to work to believe joy is resistance. I do believe that joy is necessary to just keep our tanks full so that we can continue. And I guess in that way, joy is resistance, because then we have the energy to continue resisting. But for me, joy is resistance means my list has gotten really small. So nurturing my friendships, chosen family relationships, therapy, being more mindful about how and when and where and how much news I ingest, playing more music. I learned a song the day after the election, an old political song by Rodgers and Hammerstein from South Pacific from 1949 called You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. It's a 1 minute, powerful, painful, beautiful song. And art helps me make sense of the world, and I think it helps make sense of what the fuck happened with that election, what's happening right now, the loud hatred and vitriol that's happening. So, and music is a salve, and one of the only ones that I know, and one that is immediately accessible to me. So in a pile of tears, I learned that song the day after the election, and learned probably 24 songs between then and the end of the year, because it also gave my brain something healthier to chew on than the repetitive, terrorizing news cycle. And I posted a song a day for Black History Month in February, which, because of the administration, was an extra act of defiance just to do that. So leaning into my art and my community is what keeps me sane and stable in this moment.
As with every guest, we ask Pamela what rooted resilience means to her.
For me, zooming out and remembering different things lends to my resilience, and that is being caught up in it's fascism. What are they doing? Project 2025. And all of it is outrageous and overtly racist and misogynist and xenophobic and transphobic and homophobic. But it's always been. This country has always been. This country has never been what it claims to be, what it aspires to be. Not once, not once. And here and there in moments. So remembering that sort of intolerance and hatred and envy, has always been in the mix. It's just been a lot louder again over the past decade, and the loudest it's been in my lifetime. But remembering that it's always been helps me to make sense of it and not to go completely off the rails now by what I see. And also to remember that that election was close, and I believe it was messed with, but even so, there were over 73 million people who feel the same way as I do, and even more of those who didn't vote who should have voted. So remembering that I'm not alone in my outrage helps a lot too, even though I don't see that kind of support as visibly as I'd like to. And remembering that this is what I do. This is when I'm up. This is my ish. This is my lane. And even though I'm still like a pot still simmering right now in this moment, I will address it as I address everything. And So knowing that I come and feel a part of a lineage of artists like Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, James Baldwin, those who have used their lives to speak to the moment. I'm not alone in that either. And remembering that, feeling proud of that, embracing that is another way that I feel rooted in resilience and the urge to step forward versus run away and hide. And Audre Lorde said the definition of courage is to say what you have to say even when your voice shakes. And so that helps me. And also to remember that people have had it much harder. Even my dad, who grew up in Jim Crow, Tennessee, had it harder than anything that I am so far have been facing. So that's a powerful perspective. And because of everything that my ancestors, our ancestors have gone through, there's no way to lay down right now. So all of that helps me also. Not to not be afraid, but to keep going despite any fear. And say, I want to go out like this. If I'm going out, not cowering.
Pamela offers some final thoughts for those creatives who are listening in.
I think to trust yourselves and believe in yourselves, even if adults or teachers or others squash that, then if anyone tries to squash a flame, then someone probably squashed their flame. And vulnerability is not just a good thing, but a crucial thing in life and art. And to embrace that and the vulnerability and the truth of experience, of emotion. And I do think that artists are special. Some people try to say artists aren't so special, but no, we are very special. Because art can take in the world and spit it back out so other people can see it or hear it or experience it. Art can name the unnameable, speak the unspeakable, articulate the inarticulable. And not everybody can do it. If they could, they would. So I think artists are warriors in many respects as well. I feel like a warrior in a long lineage of some badass warriors. And I also believe that protest songs are love songs. I say that now at gigs after writing so many and learning many others and presenting them. We fight for what we care about, and the seed of every form of protest, a song, a rally, a book, a speech, comes from the greatest kind of human love. I forgot what else I was going to say, but, not to... I was going to say not to be afraid, but that's... that may not be possible, but to proceed whether or not you are afraid. And that a song, any piece of art, but especially a song, can affect your mood, and it can change your mind, it can change your heart, it can spark a new thought, conversation, and it can do it in 3 minutes. So that's the power of art. And so we artists are very special. I feel immense gratitude to be an artist, to be able to grab my guitar in my moments of grief and rage and joy, but especially the more difficult emotions. And my guitar becomes a repository for those feelings instead of staying on my back or in my mind. And if it turns into a song, then there's a chance for it to help others or be available to others for their release and processing. So believe in yourselves, kid. Keep going. Trust yourself. Rainer Maria Rilke, in Letters to a Young Poet, says, someone comes and says, are my poems any good? Just tell me, bros. Tell me, dude. And Rilke's like, only you know. I can't tell you. You know. So that can go both ways, because there's a lot of crap where someone should have said, hey, buddy, nah, you shouldn't have put that out, dude. But if it is in you to create, then create. No one ever goes to their death saying, oh, I'm so glad that I never tried to be an artist because I really wanted to. Life is short, so say what you gotta say even when your voice shakes, and make that at.
Thanks for listening. If something resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a review. It means a lot to us as producers and helps support the growth of this project. To dig deeper and learn more about today's guests, visit our blog, rootedresilience.substack.com, where you can view all of our podcast episodes along with extended show notes and bonus content. Rooted Resilience is a grant and community-funded project, and we still have a way to go in meeting our goal to fund our first season. So if you are passionate about supporting LGBTQIA+ creative futures through the preservation of our histories, visit givebutter.com/Rooted Resilience to make a donation. All dollar amounts are vital and greatly appreciated. Thank you for centering Two-Spirit LGBTQIA+ creatives with us. This work is more meaningful than ever as we face even steeper challenges in preserving our history for future generations.